you will need some yarn, and you will need a crochet hook in a size that matches your yarn, and some measuring tape so you can measure your body, some scissors. So first of all, you can measure around your bust to figure out how many centimeters you are in circumference, and then you will need to measure your armhole. So this is from the shoulder down to the armpit, so you can either measure just this length or all around, and the same with this, you can just measure all around or measure just across, because it's basically the same measurement just divided by 2. Then you will need the length of your vest, so how long you want it to be. And the way we're gonna make this vest is very simple. So it's gonna be a vest that we can also wear over something else. So I'm just going to take my measurements and do the vest exactly after my measurements. This way it will be a little bit loose. Lots of them doesn't have any paper on them, so I don't really know the sizes, but I can look at the different yarns, put them over my hand like this, and this one seems to be the same size. I have these 3 sizes, 4.5, 6 and 10, and sometimes I think it's fun to try a different hook for the yarn I'm using, so I can create a different look on the stitches. So we're going to make a chainless foundation, and I think I'm just going to do double crochet. So we chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then into our first chain we do yarn over into the chain, grab the yarn, pull through, chain 1, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So here we have the first stitch and the second stitch. Some people say skip the first one, but I always use this as the first stitch. So again, yarn over. Now we go through this one, which is 2 loops. So this one, grab the yarn, pull through, chain 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. If you make very structured stitches, like shell stitch or very tight stitches, then you can subtract 5 centimeters. And if you, like I do, make very loose stitches, very big stitches, these will give a lot more than tighter stitches. So for instance, this one, this is quite tightly crocheted, and even though it does have some stretch to it, it will not give just as much as this one. So if I wanted this to be a sweater or a vest or whatever, and I wanted it to fit tightly, I would maybe just subtract 5 centimeters from my measurements. Whereas if I wanted this to fit tightly, I would subtract 10 centimeters from my measurement. But in this case, I'm not gonna do a tight fitted vest. I'm just gonna make it loose. So I'm just gonna go with the measurements I have. I'm not gonna subtract anything. Fold it in half, 42.5, perfect. So at this point, I need to count all my stitches on the row. This is important because we're gonna half the stitches at one point. So we need this to be an even number. So if it's not an even number, you can make one extra stitch or unravel one stitch. So now I'm going to grab my other end of the row, so where I started. So I'm going to make one slip stitch into that. So into that, and then one slip stitch. So this way I connect the row, and as you can see, it has this piece right here, and we're just going to stick a hook through here and then just pull the yarn end through and make one chain just to tighten that area, and then in the end we can sew this together so it just looks nice. So now we have connected our row into a ring and connected the bottom of the edge right here, and now we've chained 2. This is our first stitch. We turn over our row and we're going to crochet into the stitches. We're just going to make 1 double crochet per stitch. And just to show you this, so at this point we have 1 stitch here which equals the stitch underneath. So we're not going to crochet into that one, we're going to crochet into this one. This is our first stitch, and when we come all the way around we finish in this stitch. So as you can see, there's a stitch here, there's a stitch here with the 2 chains, and a stitch here. So this is our first stitch. So now we are back at where we started our second row. We have our 2 chains here, and then we have the last stitch on the round, which sometimes can be tricky because it doesn't really look like a stitch, because the one loop is like up here and the other loop is sort of down here on the back. They're not really even, but it's still a stitch. So that's the last stitch on the round. So we go into that. And then we finish with 1 slip stitch in the second chain in the beginning of the round. And because I'm gonna change colors, I'm going to use my color. So when I do the slip stitch, I'm not gonna pull this yarn in, I'm gonna pull my new color in. So I stick the hook through the second chain, and then I use the other color and pull that through as a slip stitch. And now you can either just tie a knot here on the back, or you can just leave it as it is. And again you chain 2, the first stitch, and then again turn over, and you're going to do the same as before, make 1 stitch in every double crochet in the round. You're just going to keep doing that until you have your measurement from the down here and then up to your armpit, so this length. I have made a tube, so I've made the belly of the vest. I've worked in a round. So as I showed on the drawing, this was our first part, and now we're going to make the first panel. So I have 76 stitches on my tube, and I divide that by 2, 38. So I need to count 38 stitches on my first row. So now I've turned over my work as I've done the other times, and my first 2 chains that I make here is the first stitch, so that's 1, and then I just crochet as I did before, but I stop when I have 38. So 2, 3, and 38. And now you stop at the middle of the tube. So you've only crocheted over half of the tube from here and to here. So as the drawing, we work first the tube and then we work the first panel out from the tube, but only on one side. And now when we're at the end of this row, after our 38 stitches, I chain 2, which is my first stitch as before, and I turn over and I work my way back. So the first stitch we don't crochet into because that's for our 2 chains, and then we just skip that and go to the next. So now I have worked my way back on the second row of my panel, and here we have the last 2 stitches, the double crochet and the 2 chains. So I crochet into the double crochet and into the second chain, and I'm gonna pull that through the last time I grab the yarn, and then tighten, and again chain 2 for your first stitch and turn over and work your way back. So again we skip the first stitch because we have made the 2 chains. Go into the next. So we continue until we have the measurement of our armhole. So this is from where we ended the tube, our armpit, and then up to our shoulder. That's the measurement. So it's easier to measure this part if you just measure around your shoulder and then divide that by 2, then you will have this measurement. And as you can see, the panel goes out from the tube like this. And I've also measured the height. Okay, so I have made 10 rows on my first panel, and I'm going to make the same number of rows on the other panel. And I'm going to flip it down like this. So now we are on the wrong side of this row, and I'm going to start my other panel over here, right here. So the next stitch is for the new panel, and I make a slip stitch and chain 2, my first stitch, and now I just work my way down the row until I get to the other side. And I've finished over here. So this is my right side, and now we have the 2 panels, the opening for the arm here in the side, and then the tube down here. So before breaking off the yarn, I'm going to crochet the 2 panels together. So you can either make the shoulders small and make a big opening for the head, or you can make the shoulders wider and just make a small opening for the head. So try on the vest so you can see how big you want your shoulders to be. So start off by turning the vest so the wrong side is facing out. And then we just start with our one side, so this one and just put them together, and you can use a needle or you can use your hook. I normally use my hook, I think it's easier. So for this corner I stick my hook through the first stitch and then through the next stitch, which is the second chain over here, and then I use the yarn and I make a slip stitch into the next 2 stitches, make a slip stitch. After sewing, I'm just going to sew once more through the same stitch, and then I back into the loop with my needle to tighten, and I do the same for the other shoulder. Here we just need it to fit exactly for this opening, because I want it to be just an edge going all around. So in my opening for my head, I have 18 stitches on each side, so that's 36 stitches. I'm also counting the corner stitches as a stitch, so this one, even though I've connected the shoulder with this stitch, so there are 4 of these, 1, 2, and 3, 4. So 36 in total, including these corner stitches. So again, a chainless foundation. I think it's gonna be good. I like a high edge, so almost like a turtleneck but more wide. So I'm gonna do that and come back. Right side facing up, and I have made 18 rows of double crochet, because for each row I make 2 single crochet. That way I make 36 stitches in total. I place the edge onto the opening here, and so these first 2 stitches I crochet into the same row on the edge, so into that row, and I make single crochet into the same row into the next stitch, and I do that all over. So the next row, make 2 single crochet, the next row, we connect the first and last row on our edge and slip stitch through the stitches on each side. Oops. So slip stitch, chain 1, and break off the yarn. Now we have our neck up here, and again try it on to see if you can fit your head. I'm just going to make a wide sleeve and then just do a cuff on the last rows. You have your vest laying like this on the side with the opening for the head up here, the shoulder here, and the opening for the sleeve. So you are going to turn the vest with the wrong side facing out. You're going to find the first row on your panel, and this is my first row. We make 2 stitches per row. Insert your hook into the first row, make a slip stitch, chain 2, that's our first stitch. Next stitch into the same hole, that's 2 stitches per row. Now that we have worked around the shoulder and down to the beginning, this is my last row, so this is the first row on the other panel, and this is our armpit. now I have no more stitches left. So you chain 2, or first stitch, you turn over. Now we are on the right side actually, because we're inside the sleeve now. We started on the wrong side, so now we go in the opposite direction, and here you can see that this is my two chains. So I don't go into that stitch, but I go into that stitch for my first one. And when we go back, this right here is our last stitch. So you just make 1 double crochet in each stitch. So I continue the sleeve until I have the length I want minus 5 centimeters. Now I have made my sleeve, and right now I'm wearing the sweater to see how long the sleeve is, and there's still a little bit left to my wrist, so I'm going to make 1 or 2 rows of decrease so that my sleeve will have this tighter cuff. I have tried to wrap this sweater around my wrist, and 20 stitches should be fine for my wrist. I don't want it to be too tight. So 20 stitches is half of what I have. So the cuff would be this size. And when I have 40 stitches and I need to end up with 20 stitches, I need to make a decrease on every stitch. So that means that I crochet together every 2 stitches on the row. So I chain 2, that's my first stitch, and I think I'm gonna skip the next. So over 2 stitches I have 1 stitch left, so I skip the next, then I make a decrease over the next 2 stitches, and then I just repeat that decrease, again finish with 1 slip stitch in the first stitch. You can stop here if you want, or you can make 1 more row or 2 more rows or whatever, and now you just make 1 stitch into every double crochet. You finish with 1 slip stitch in the second chain, chain 1, break off the yarn. Because I started my sleeve on the wrong side, which is this side, I need to finish on the right side, so I finished inside the sleeve here. So depending on how many rows you have, just make sure that the last row you make is made on the right side, and you have the sleeve that you made on the opposite side. And this way, with the wrong side facing out, you can start your first stitch as you did on the other side on the first row on the panel. So right here in the armpit, work your way up as before and go back and forth in rounds. And just make sure that you make it the same way as the other sleeve with the same number of rows, and then make the decreasing 2 stitches into 1 on 1 row, and then making 1 regular row of double crochet.